First, we need to roll for which deployment map will be used in this battle report. And we get Dawn of War. Next, we need to roll for what army will be deploying on what side of the battlefield. On a 1, 2, or a 3, the Death Guard will be deploying on this side that they are currently sitting next to, and the Ultramarines will deploy on this side that they are currently sitting next to. On a 4, 5, or 6, they will deploy on the opposite side. And they will be deploying on the opposite side. Finally, on a roll of a 1, 2, or a 3, the Death Guard will begin deploying first. On a roll of a 4, 5, or 6, the Ultramarines will begin deploying first. And the Death Guard will begin deploying first. We will be back after deployment. Now that deployment is finished, let's take a quick look at the board. This is the board that we'll be playing on today. The Death Guard began to deploy first, and they deployed over on that side of the board. The Ultramarines began deploying second, and they deployed on this side of the board. The Ultramarines did finish deploying first, as they only had 6 units to set up, whereas the Death Guard had 7. So the Ultramarines deployed a repulsor down here in this corner. Inside is the Captain in Gravis armor, who for the rest of the battle will be referred to as the Chapter Master, as he used the Chapter Master stratagem. The Primaris Lieutenant and the 7 Hellblasters are all inside the repulsor with the captain. A squad of tactical marines is up on this ruin here. The Knight Errant is right in the middle of the Ultramarines deployment. The second squad of tactical marines is inside this building. The third squad of tactical marines is on this building. And finally, the Land Raider with the 5 Terminators inside is right here, close to that corner and the wall. On the Death Guard side, we have a squad of Poxwalkers in this corner. The Fetid Bloat Drone with the Demon Prince Warlord behind. In the middle of the Death Guard deployment is one of the Chaos Land Raiders with a Lord of Contagion, a Plague Surgeon, and one of the Plague Marine squads embarked inside. The second squad of Poxwalkers, the third squad of Poxwalkers, and finally in this corner, the second Chaos Land Raider with the other Lord of Contagion, Plague Surgeon, and Plague Marine squad embarked inside. Because the Ultramarines did finish deploying first, they will go first unless the Death Guard sees the initiative, which they will attempt to do. And if they fail on the first roll, they will use a command point, bringing them from 6 down to 5, in order to re-roll the seize the initiative dice. So here's the first roll, and they seize the initiative. So let's move into Death Guard turn 1. At the beginning of Death Guard turn 1, just a reminder that the Death Guard still have all 6 command points, whereas the Ultramarines only have 2 command points available. Going into the movement phase for Death Guard turn 1, these Poxwalkers are going to move up the board 4 inches, and they will also advance at the same time, getting an extra inch. Here's where the Poxwalkers ended up after their total 5 inches of movement. The Fetid Bloat Drone is going to move 10 inches up the board towards the Ultramarine Repulsor and the Ultramarine Tactical Marines. Here's where the Bloat Drone ended up after its 10 inches of movement. The Demon Prince is going to move up the board 12 inches towards the Repulsor and the Tactical Marines. Here's where the Demon Prince ended up after its 12 inches of movement. He is now within 18 inches of those Tactical Marines. However, the Bloat Drone is still closer to both the Repulsor and the Tactical Marines for purposes of targeting a character. So neither of those 2 units will be able to target the Demon Prince with the current positioning. This Land Raider is going to stay put. This Poxwalker squad is going to move up the board 4 inches towards those Ultramarine units. It is also going to declare an advance at the same time, getting a 6 for 10 inches of total movement. After its movement of 10 inches, here's where the Poxwalkers ended up, with reference to the Ultramarine models. This squad of Poxwalkers is also going to move up the board 4 inches towards those Ultramarines, and it will declare an advance at the same time, also getting 6 inches advance for 10 inches total movement. Here is where those Poxwalkers ended up after their 10 inches of total movement, right next to this other Poxwalker squad. This Land Raider is going to move up the board 6 inches. This Land Raider will end its movement right here, Moving into the Psychic phase, for Death Guard turn 1, the Demon Prince will attempt to cast Smite onto those Tactical Marines as they are the closest visible enemy unit. He needs a 5 or better, and he gets a 5. So it goes off, and it does D3 mortal wounds to those Tactical Marines. And it does 1. The Death Guard will use a command point, going from 6 down to 5 in order to re-roll that dice. And it makes it a 2. So 2 Tactical Marines go down, which will force a morale check. Moving into the Death Guard turn 1 shooting phase, this Land Raider is going to fire its twin heavy bolter into those Tactical Marines, and it will fire both of its twin last cannons into the Night Titan. Starting with the twin heavy bolter into the Tactical Marines, 6 shots hitting on 3s. Getting all 6 hits. Strength 5 versus toughness 4 means 3s to wound. Getting 5 wounds. It is -1 AP, but the Tactical Marines are in a ruin, which adds 1 to their armor, so they will keep their 3-up armor save. And they fail 2. The Ultramarines will use a command point, going from 2 down to 1 in order to re-roll one of those failed armor checks. And still fails. So both the regular Marine and the Sergeant will go down. And the thought process behind using a command point to re-roll that is if it had passed, the Sergeant could have stayed alive, giving a better leadership in order to have a better chance to pass the morale check. Because now that 4 of the 5 Marines have been killed this turn, there is a chance that even with And They Shall Know No Fear, this last Tactical Marine will fail its morale check and be killed off for first blood. Now for the 2 twin last cannons from the Land Raider into the Night Titan. 4 shots hitting on 3s, getting all 4 hits. Strength 9 versus toughness 8 is 3s to wound. Getting 2 wounds, and the Death Guard will use another command point, going from 5 down to 4 in order to re-roll one of those failed wounds. And it goes through. So 3 wounds at -3 AP will force the Knight Errant to use its Ion Shield with a 5-up invulnerable save. And they failed 2, and they have already used a command point in the Death Guard shooting phase, so they cannot use their last command point in order to re-roll one of those. So 2 of the last cannon shots will go through, and they do D6 damage apiece, doing 7 damage, which will bring the Knight Errant from 24 down to 17 wounds. Finally, this Land Raider for the Death Guard will shoot its 2 twin last cannons into the Ultramarine Land Raider, and it will fire its twin heavy bolter into this Tactical Marine squad. Starting with the twin heavy bolter into the Tactical Marines, 6 shots hitting on 3s, getting only 2 hits. Strength 5 versus toughness 4 is 3s to wound, getting 2 wounds. The Ultramarines will have a 3-up armor save thanks to being in cover, but having a -1 AP from the heavy bolters, and passing both. Now the 2 twin last cannons from the Land Raider into the Ultramarines Land Raider, 4 shots hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 9 versus toughness 8 means 3s to wound, getting 2 wounds. Unlike the Night Titan, the Land Raider only has a 2-up armor save, so the 2-up goes to a 5-up because the last cannons are -3 AP. So 2 5-up armor saves, failing both, so it will do 2 D6 damage, doing 8, which will drop the Land Raider from 16 down to 8 wounds, and it is now at its 2nd tier of damage capacity. So its stats will be slightly lower for the rest of the game. That is it for the Death Guard shooting phase, and they are not in range to charge anyone, so we will go right into the morale phase. This tactical squad is the only unit that needs to take a morale test this turn. They did lose 4 soldiers, and the regular Marine that's left has a leadership of 7. So on a 3 or lower, they pass the morale check. On a 4 or higher, they fail, but they do have And They Shall Know No Fear, so they will get to re-roll it if they fail the first time. And they fail the first roll, and they failed the second roll. So this final Marine is removed, and that is first blood for the Death Guard. And that is the end of Death Guard turn 1. Going into Ultramarines turn 1, just as a reminder, the Ultramarines have 1 command point left, while the Death Guard have 4 command points left. At the beginning of the Ultramarines movement phase, the Knight Errant is going to move up the board 12 inches towards those Poxwalkers and that Land Raider. He will end his movement here, and he is now significantly closer to those Poxwalkers, the Land Raider, and the Demon Prince. And he is well within charge range of that group of Poxwalkers. This tactical squad will stay still. This tactical squad will also stay still, and this Land Raider will stay still. Everyone embarked inside this repulsor is going to disembark out towards the Death Guard. Here's where the Hellblasters, the Chapter Master, and the Lieutenant all ended their disembarkation, and they will now move up the board towards those Death Guard, with the Hellblasters moving 6 inches, the Lieutenant moving 6 inches, and the Chapter Master moving 5 inches. Here's where they ended their movement. The repulsor is going to move 10 inches over this direction. And because the repulsor can fly, it is now sitting on top of this ruin where the tactical Marine squad that was wiped out last turn used to be sitting. That is the end of the Ultramarines movement phase. Moving right into the Ultramarines shooting phase, we are going to start with these 7 Hellblasters, and they are going to fire rapid fire since they have 30-inch weapons. Their half range is 15 inches, which this bloat drone is more than within, and they are going to shoot 14 supercharged shots into the bloat drone. So 2 shots per person. Now these all have to be done separately, since if a 1 is rolled, it will remove a model. Luckily, thanks to the Chapter Master, they do get to re-roll, but if the end result is a 1, then a model will be removed, and so we have to do them all separately, and we will start with the Sergeant. All of these shots are going to be hitting on 3s, so the Sergeant, 2 shots hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit, 1 miss, thanks to the Chapter Master, get to re-roll, and still a failed. Marine number 1, 2 hits. Regular Hellblaster number 2, 1 hit, 1 miss, re-rolling the miss, and it becomes a hit. Hellblaster number 3, 1 hit, 1 miss, re-rolling the miss, getting a hit. Hellblaster number 4, getting 2 hits. Hellblaster number 5, getting 2 hits. Hellblaster number 6, getting 2 hits. Wow, so 13 hits out of 14 shots with only 1 miss, and no Hellblasters were removed, even though they were using the supercharged shots. Because they're supercharged, they are strength 8 instead of the usual strength 7 against the bloat drone's toughness 7. So 3s to wound, and the Lieutenant allows them to re-roll 1s. Getting 7 wounds so far, with 3 definite misses and 3 1s to re-roll. Re-rolling the 1s, and all 3 of those 1s became wounds. So 10 wounds total, and the plasma incinerators are -4 AP, so the bloat drone will not have an armor save at all, so he will only use his 5-up invulnerable save. And passes 1, and they are going to use 1 command point, going from 4 down to 3 in order to re-roll one of those failed invulns. So re-rolling one of the 3s that were rolled, and it still fails to save. So a total of 9 go through, but because it's supercharged, these are all 2 damage apiece. So 18 wounds that the bloat drone needs to save through Disgustingly Resilient. So 5 up, Disgustingly Resilient. So the bloat drone saves 8 out of the 18 with Disgustingly Resilient and fails 10. The bloat drone has 10 wounds exactly, so the bloat drone is killed. And the Death Guard cannot use another command point to re-roll one of those failed Disgustingly Resilient rolls, because they have already used a command re-roll during this Ultramarines shooting phase. So now that the Hellblasters have removed that bloat drone, the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is now the closest visible enemy unit to this repulsor. And so even though he's a character, the repulsor is able to now fire on the Demon Prince. And so the repulsor will fire everything it has into that Demon Prince. So we're going to start from the repulsor into the Demon Prince of Nurgle. We're going to start with the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber. 3 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means 5s to wound. Getting 1 wound. And the Demon Prince has a 2-up armor save, thanks to its relic. But the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber is -1 AP, so the Demon Prince will have a 3-up save, which it fails, and it does 1 damage, so 1 disgustingly resilient roll, which it passes. 2 Crackstorm Grenade Launchers, hitting on 3s, 1 hit. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means a 4 to wound, and it wounds. -1 AP, so a 3-up armor save from the Demon Prince, and it passes. The repulsor has 3 Stormbolters, but he is not in rapid fire range, so 6 shots total, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits, wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds, no AP, so the Demon Prince has a 2-up armor save, and passes both. Finally, the weapon that should do something, the Last Talon, has 2 shots, hitting on 3s, and both miss. Oh no! Well, that was not supposed to happen. Moving over to this side of the Ultramarines deployment zone, this Tactical Marine squad is going to fire its last cannon into the Black Death Guard Land Raider, and it will fire the 4 bolt guns in the squad into this Poxwalker squad, and they are just within 24-inch range. Starting with the bolt guns, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds. The Poxwalkers do not have a save, but they do have Disgustingly Resilient, and they fail 3. So 3 Poxwalkers are removed. Finally, the last cannon will shoot the Land Raider on a 3, and it hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 is a 3 to wound, and it wounds. -3 AP, so the Land Raider's 2-up armor save goes to a 5-up, and it passes. This tactical squad is going to do the exact same thing. 4 bolt guns into this squad of Poxwalkers, as they are just within 24-inch range, and the last cannon into the Black Chaos Land Raider. So the 4 bolt guns first, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound, 1 Disgustingly Resilient roll, and it fails. So 1 more Poxwalker is removed. Finally, the last cannon into the Chaos Land Raider, hitting on a 3, and it hits, wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Now the Land Raider will declare it's going to shoot its twin heavy bolter into those Poxwalkers, and it's going to shoot both of its twin last cannons into that Land Raider. 6 shots from the twin heavy bolter into the Poxwalkers, hitting on 4s since it is damaged now. Still getting 5 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds. No save for the Poxwalkers, so 3 Disgustingly Resilient rolls, and fail 3 more. Now for the 2 twin last cannons into the Land Raider. 4 shots hitting on 4s, and the Ultramarines are going to use their last command point, going down to 0 in order to re-roll the miss, and it still misses. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 means 3s to wound, only getting 1 wound. -3 AP, so the Death Guard get a 5-up armor save on the Land Raider, which he fails. And the Death Guard already used command reroll in the Ultramarine shooting phase for the bloat drone that was removed, so they do not get to try to save that here. So it does D6 damage, and it will do 5 damage. So this Land Raider will drop from 16 wounds down to 11. Finally, the Knight Errant is going to shoot its Ironstorm missile pod and its heavy stubbers into this squad of Poxwalkers, and it will shoot its thermal cannon into the wounded Land Raider. So the 3 shots from the heavy stubbers first, getting 2 hits, wounding on 3s, failing to wound. The Ironstorm missile pod does D6 shots, getting 6 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds, and it is -1 AP. So now that even though the whole Poxwalker unit, or what's left of it, is within the crater, they still will not get a save. And it is 2 damage apiece, so I will have to do these separately. So the first one, for Disgustingly Resilient, 1 guy goes down. The second one passes. And the third one, the guy goes down. So there's still 1 Poxwalker left, thanks to having to take those separately. Finally, the thermal cannon from the Night Titan onto the Land Raider. It is D6 shots. So 3 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds, -4 AP. So the Land Raider only gets a 6-up armor save, which he passes 1, and this will do D6 damage. So it does 2 damage, which will drop the Chaos Land Raider from 11 wounds down to 9, which means that the Chaos Land Raider is still at full capacity. Moving into the Ultramarine Assault phase, the Knight Errant will declare a charge onto those Poxwalkers. The Poxwalkers have no overwatch, so here's the charge range. Getting 7 inches, which is more than enough to make it in. So the Night Titan will get to attack first since it charged. It has 4 attack space, but it will use its Titanic Feet, which gives it 3 attacks from the Titanic Feet per base attack for a total of 12 attacks. So 12 attacks from the Night Titan, hitting on 3s, getting 8 hits, wounding on 2s. Oh, that's terrible. Only getting 4 wounds out of 8. Wounding on 2s. Look at all those 1s. That's just terrible. And unfortunately, they have no command points to re-roll that. So the Poxwalkers have no save, and these are D3 damage apiece, but they will all have to be done separately. So the first one, D3 damage, doing 1 damage. So 1 Disgustingly Resilient, and it passes. Of course it does. The second one, D3 damage, does 1 damage. Disgustingly Resilient, which it fails, so 1 will go down. The third, D3 damage, doing 3 damage this time. 3 Disgustingly Resilient rolls, and fails 2 of them, so 1 more goes down. And finally, the fourth wound does D3 damage, does 2. So 2 Disgustingly Resilient, fails both. Third guy goes down. The Poxwalkers will then pile in. There are 7 Poxwalkers left, with 2 attacks each, 14 attacks total. Hitting on 5s, getting 4 hits, wounding on 6s, getting 2 wounds. How is wounding on 6s and they end up getting they get half the number of wounds that the Night Titan did? It doesn't make any sense at all. 1 damage apiece, but the Night Titan has a 3-up armor save. And he fails both! Oh my goodness! Which drops the Night Titan from 17 down to 15 wounds. So the Night Titan killed 3 Poxwalkers, and the remaining Poxwalkers took 2 wounds off of a Night Titan. This doesn't make any sense. That shouldn't happen. So that will be the end of the Ultramarines assault phase, and there are no morale checks to take, so that will be the end of Ultramarines turn 1. I realized that I said that the Ultramarines turn 1 was over, but I forgot to fire the Land Raider's Stormbolter, which potentially could make a big difference. So, 2 shots from the Stormbolter into that Poxwalker, which is what he should have done and would have done. I remembered that the completely obvious multicolored Stormbolter was actually there and available, which he did pay for. So, 2 shots hitting on 4s, and they both miss. So, never mind. Going into Death Guard turn 2, a reminder that the Death Guard have 3 command points left and the Ultramarines have 0. Going into the movement phase of Death Guard turn 2, the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to move up the board 12 inches towards this group of Ultramarines right there. Right to there. These Poxwalkers are going to continue moving up the board towards the Ultramarines deployment zone. They're going to move their 4 inches, and they are also going to declare an advance at the same time, getting a 3-inch advance for 7 inches of movement total. And this is where the Poxwalkers ended up after moving their 7 inches. This Poxwalker is going to move up the board towards the Ultramarines 4 inches, and he will also declare an advance, getting a 5-inch advance for 9 inches of movement total. The Poxwalker will end up in the crater right here. This group of Poxwalkers is going to fall back away from the Night Titan, but towards that group of Ultramarines. And they will finish their fallback move right here. All of the models inside this Land Raider will disembark. Here is where they finish their movement after disembarkation. The Lord of Contagion, the Plague Surgeon, and the Plague Marines are now going to move up the board towards the Knight Errant. The Lord of Contagion has a 4-inch movement. The Plague Marines and the Plague Surgeon have a 5-inch movement. They will finish up their movement here. The Land Raider is then going to move 10 inches over this direction, ending its movement right here. All of the models inside of this Chaos Land Raider are also going to disembark. Here's where the disembarkation ended up for the Lord of Contagion, the Plague Surgeon, and the Plague Marines, and they will now move up the board towards those Ultramarine forces. And here's where they ended up. The Plague Marines are within 18-inch rapid-fire range thanks to their special abilities for being Death Guard of the Land Raider. The Black Chaos Land Raider will then move 10 inches over this direction towards the other Chaos Land Raider. And this Chaos Land Raider will end its move right here. Moving on to the Death Guard turn 2 psychic phase, the Demon Prince is going to cast Curse of the Leper onto the Hellblasters. He needs a 7 to pass and fails, so they will use 1 command point, going from 3 to 2 to re-roll the 1. And they still fail, so no psychic tests were achieved this turn. Moving into the Death Guard turn 2 shooting phase, we are going to start with the Plague Surgeon, and he is going to fire his bolt pistol into the Night Titan, hitting on a 3, getting a hit, wounding on a 6, and fails to wound. Next, the Plague Marines will fire. The 4 bolt guns in the group are going to shoot at full range into that squad of Tactical Marines, while the 3 plasma guns are going to shoot supercharged rapid fire into the Night Titan. Starting with the 4 bolt guns, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits, wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. Because the Tactical Marines are in a ruin, they will have a 2+ armor save, and they pass. Now for the 3 plasma guns into the Night Titan, we will start with the Plague Champion's plasma gun, and we have to do these separate since it could kill all of the models. Getting 1 hit, 1 miss for the champion. The first regular Plague Marine gets 2 hits, and the second regular Plague Marine gets 1 hit, but will go down after the shots are resolved. 4 hits, Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 is 4s to wound, getting no wounds. Next, this squad of Plague Marines is going to fire. It will fire its 3 plasma guns in 18-inch rapid fire range into the Land Raider, and the 4 bolt guns will shoot full range into that squad of Tactical Marines. Starting with the bolt guns, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits, wounding on 4s, getting 2 wounds, and the Ultramarines will have a 2-up armor save thanks to being in cover. And they pass both. Now for the plasma guns. This group will also fire supercharged since they are shooting at a Land Raider. So we will start with the Plague Champion. 1 hit, but he will die. First regular Plague Marine, 2 hits, and second regular Plague Marine, 1 hit and 1 miss. So the Plague Champion is slain after that, but we have 4 shots that hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means 4s to wound. Getting 2 wounds, minus 3 AP, so the Land Raider goes from a 2-up armor save to a 5-up, and passes 1, but it is 2 damage apiece, so the Land Raider will take 2 damage. And so the Ultramarines Land Raider will go from 8 wounds down to 6. This Land Raider is going to shoot its twin heavy bolter into this squad of Tactical Marines, and it will shoot both of its twin last cannons into the Night Titan. Starting with the twin heavy bolter, hitting on 3s, 6 shots, only getting 2 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. Since the Marines are in cover, but it is minus 1 AP, they will still get a 3-up armor save, which they pass. Now for the 2 twin last cannons into the Night Titan. 4 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits, and the Death Guard are going to use 1 command point, going from 2 command points down to 1 in order to re-roll one of the failed hits. And it hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 means 3s to wound. And 2 wounds. The Knight Errant has a 5-up invulnerable save against shooting attacks. And it fails both. 2d6 damage. And it does 7. So the Knight Titan will go from 15 wounds down to 8. And finally, this Land Raider will do the same thing. Twin Heavy Bolter into those Tactical Marines, and both of its twin last cannons into the Knight Titan. Starting with the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds, and the Tactical Marines will have a 3-up armor save, and they pass 1. So 1 regular Marine will go down, forcing a morale check. Now, for the 2 twin last cannons onto the Knight Titan, 4 shots hitting on 3s. Getting all 4 hits, Strength 9 versus Toughness 8, 3s to wound, and all 4 wounds. The Knight Titan has a 5-up invulnerable save, and passes 2, and this will do d6 damage apiece, and the Knight Errant has 8 wounds left. So a roll of 8 or more, and the Knight Errant will go down. And it has 2 wounds left, taking 6 damage. And that is all of the Death Guard shooting. So now we will move in to the Death Guard turn 2 assault phase. We have 3 charges to declare. The first is this Lord of Contagion is going to declare a charge on the Knight Titan. The second is this squad of 10 Poxwalkers is going to declare a charge onto the Hellblasters. And third is that this Demon Prince will declare a charge on the Hellblasters, the Chapter Master, and the Primaris Lieutenant. Now, he has no hope of making a charge onto the Primaris Lieutenant because of where he is positioned, but if the Primaris Lieutenant makes a heroic intervention and gets into combat, the Demon Prince then will be allowed to fight him. This also means that the Primaris Lieutenant will be allowed to overwatch, but 1 bolt pistol is not the end of the world for the Demon Prince. And so we'll begin in that order, starting with the Lord of Contagion onto the Knight Titan. The Knight Titan will first overwatch with his Heavy Stubber, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 5. And it wounds. Heavy Stubber has no AP, so the Lord of Contagion will have a 2-up armor save, which he passes. Next will be the Iron Storm Missile Pod, d6 shots, getting 5 shots, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 4, and it wounds. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5, minus 1 AP, so the Lord of Contagion will take a 3-up armor save, which he passes. And finally, the Thermal Cannon, d6 shots, getting 4 shots, hitting on 6s, getting no hits. So then the charge distance for the Lord of Contagion is going to be 9 inches, which will be more than enough. And he will finish his charge right here. Next, the Poxwalkers will charge into the Hellblasters in order to attempt to draw the Overwatch. So the Hellblasters will fire standard shots. Since the Poxwalkers are only toughness 3, they have no need to fire supercharged shots. So 14 shots, hitting on 6s, but re-rolling thanks to the Chapter Master. Getting 3 hits so far, re-rolling the 11 that missed, and getting 2 more. These will be wounding on 2s, re-rolling 1s thanks to the Lieutenant, and all wound. The Poxwalkers will not get a save, but these are only 1 damage apiece, so 5 disgustingly resilient rolls. They make 3, so 2 go down. Then for their charge distance, oh, and that's a bad fail, so they will not make their charge. So now the Demon Prince will charge in, and they all get to Overwatch. We'll start with the Bolt Pistol from the Primaris Lieutenant, hitting on a 6, re-rolling thanks to the Chapter Master, and it fails to hit. The Chapter Master will now fire his Bolt Storm Gauntlet, 3 shots, hitting on 6s, getting no hits, re-rolling, still getting no hits. Now the Hellblasters will fire, and they will fire standard shots again, since the Demon Prince is only toughness 6, and they don't want to risk losing some guys in Overwatch. So 14 shots, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit out of 14 to start, re-rolling the 13 that missed, still needing 6s, and getting 2 more hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 6 is 3s to wound. Re-rolling the 1 thanks to the Lieutenant, getting 2 wounds. They are minus 4 AP, so the Demon Prince will use his demonic 5+ invulnerable save and passes 1. It's only 1 damage per shot, so he has a 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which he fails, and he will use his last command point to re-roll that. And he passes, so no damage. Then for the charge range, 8 inches, more than enough to get him in combat with the Hellblasters and the Chapter Master. And because of where the positioning is, the Primaris Lieutenant would not be able to move 3 inches for heroic intervention, maneuver around the captain's base, and then be within an inch of the Demon Prince. So he will stay out of this combat. And after rereading the rules, they would have to start within 3 inches anyways. So the Primaris Lieutenant didn't have a chance to make it into combat. So just as well. So we will start in the fight phase with the Demon Prince and this group. The Demon Prince is going to focus all 7 of his attacks onto the Chapter Master, as he wants a Warlord on Warlord fight. 7 attack, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, and any rolls of a 6 generate an extra attack since he is targeting an Imperium unit. So getting 2 additional attacks and 1 re-roll. So here's the re-roll first, which hits, and the 2 additional attacks, which cannot generate more attacks after the fact, but if they roll 1s, he would get to re-roll them. And they all hit. So getting 9 hits out of 7 attacks, that's pretty good. Strength 7 versus toughness 5 on the Chapter Master means 3s to wound. Getting 7 wounds. Minus 2 AP, which drops the Chapter Master from a 2-up armor save, thanks to the Armor Indomitus, to a 4-up armor save, but he will pop the armor's force field in order to get a 3-up invulnerable save for this turn. So 3-up save, and only fails 1 because of that. And these are 2 damage apiece, so if without that force field, that would have dropped the Chapter Master from 7 wounds thanks to his Warlord trait down to 1. And if he had any other Warlord trait other than Iron Resolve, he would just be dead right now. Instead, he only failed 1, and so he goes from 7 wounds down to 5. Also thanks to the Warlord trait Iron Resolve, for every wound that he loses, he gets to roll a dice, and on a 6, he actually ignores the wound. So the 2 damage that went through from the 1 attack, he does get to roll a dice for each, and fails to save both. So he is down from 7 wounds total to 5. Lastly, on the Death Guard side, we have the Lord of Contagion attacking the Knight Errant. He is 4 attacks base with his Man Reaper, hitting on 2s. Getting 4 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 8 means 5s to wound, re-rolling 1s thanks to one of his special abilities. And getting a 1. And getting 3 wounds. These are minus 3 AP, so the Knight Errant will only have a 6-up armor save. And he fails all 3, so he will be removed because these are D3 damage apiece. Just for fun, we'll roll for the damage just to see how much he would have been overkilled. And that would have been 6 damage. So even if he had 6 wounds left instead of the 2, he still would be removed. But the Knight Errant will go down. And this Lord of Contagion will now consolidate 3 inches towards those Tactical Marines. Right to there. So now that the charging units have all gone, now the Ultramarines will get a chance to attack back against the Demon Prince. We will start with the Hellblasters piling in so that they all can be in combat. The Hellblasters will strike first, 15 attacks, thanks to 2 from every normal Hellblaster, or regular Hellblaster, and 3 from the Hellblaster Sergeant. 15 attacks, hitting on 3s. Rerolling, thanks to the Chapter Master, although they still got 12 hits to begin with, so that's pretty good. And the rerolls, getting 14 hits, wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, thanks to the Lieutenant. And a couple of 1s in there, which led to a couple more hits, for a total of 8 hits, or 8 wounds, I should say. So 8 wounds, no AP, of course. So the Demon Prince will take his 2-up armor save, and of course any that gets saved could rebound back onto the Hellblasters. Getting no 1s, so all of them were passed, which means all 8 dice need to be rolled. Each 4+ will throw a mortal wound onto the Hellblasters. Since there are 2 wounds apiece, 2 Hellblasters go down, and they go from 7 to 5 men. Now the Chapter Master will strike against the Demon Prince using the melee form of his Boltstorm Gauntlet. So 5 attack, hitting on 3s because he must subtract 1 from the hit rolls. However, he does not get to re-roll this 2 because re-rolls happen before modifiers. And so before the modifier, this 2 would be counted as a hit. So 4 hits, still not bad. Strength 8 versus Toughness 6 means 3s to wound, re-rolling 1s thanks to Lieutenant. Re-rolling the 1, getting 4 wounds, and these are -3 AP, which makes the Demon Prince's 2-up armor save go to a 5-up. He either has the 5-up armor save or the 5-up invulnerable save. However, he will take them as armor saves so that any that get saved get reflected back onto the Chapter Master. So 5 ups. He makes 3. What? Okay. So first, the one that goes through will do D3 damage, and it will do 3 damage, but he has a 5-up Disgustingly Resilient roll, which he passes 1. And so the Demon Prince will go from 8 wounds total down to 6. Then, the 3 wounds that get reflected back onto the Chapter Master. 3 dice, 4 ups will be reflected back as mortal wounds. And 2 go through. However, the Chapter Master is Iron Resolved, so on rolls of 6s, they are ignored. Neither is ignored. So the Chapter Master will go from 5 wounds down to 3. And that will be it for the Death Guard turn to assault phase. So we have a couple morale tests to take. Starting on the Ultramarine side, the Hellblasters lost 2 men, but the Sergeant has a leadership of 8, and so it is impossible for them to fail that. So they do not actually need to take that morale test. Then this squad of Tactical Marines lost 1 soldier, and their sergeant also has a leadership of 8, so they do not need to take a morale test. This group lost 1 soldier, but their sergeant champion has a leadership of 8, so they cannot fail. And this squad lost its champion, but they still have a leadership of 7, so it is still impossible for them to fail. And so that will be the end of Death Guard Turn 2. Going into Ultramarines Turn 2, a reminder that both sides are now completely out of command points. Going into the Ultramarine Turn 2 movement phase, this repulsor is going to move up the board 10 inches. It ends its movement right here with a good view of those Plague Marines over there. The Hellblasters are going to fall back from the Demon Prince, and the Primaris Lieutenant is going to move up to be just over an inch away. This tactical squad is going to remain still. This tactical squad is going to remain still. The Terminators inside of the Land Raider are going to disembark. And here's where they finished their disembarkation. The Terminators are now going to move up the board 5 inches towards the Death Guard. Here's where they ended their movement, and they are all within 12-inch rapid-fire range of those Plague Marines. The Land Raider is then going to move up the board a couple of inches to be in slightly better firing range. Going into the Ultramarine Turn 2 shooting phase, we are going to start with these 5 Terminators firing rapid fire into those Plague Marines. 20 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 12 hits, wounding on 5s. Getting 4 wounds. Plague Marines have a 3-up armor save, and they fail 3. They are 1 damage apiece, so 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls. And that's cocked. And 3 fail. So the 3 regular Marines that are left will go down, leaving the 2 plasma guns and the Icon. The Sergeant was killed last turn. Now the Land Raider will fire. It will shoot its Storm Bolter into the Poxwalker, and we're going to remember this time, the Twin Heavy Bolter into the Plague Marines, and the 2 Twin Last Cannons into the Wounded Chaos Land Raider. Starting with the Storm Bolter, 4 shots, since it's in rapid fire range, hitting on 4s. Getting 2 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound, no AP, so the Poxwalker will have a 6-up armor save, thanks to being in the crater, which it fails, and it is 1 damage, so a 5-up disgustingly resilient, which it passes. Now for the Twin Heavy Bolter into the Plague Marines, hitting on 4s, getting 5 hits, Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, getting 3 wounds, minus 1 AP, so the Plague Marines will have a 4-up armor save. And they fail 1, so 1 disgustingly resilient, and I just remembered there is a Plague Surgeon there to reroll 1s. So reroll, and it passes. Finally, the 2 Twin Last Cannons from the Ultramarines Land Raider into the Chaos Land Raider. 4 shots, hitting on 4s. Getting 1 hit, wounding on a 3, and it wounds. 5-up armor save from the Land Raider, the Chaos Land Raider, and it fails to save. So D6 damage only does 1. So the Chaos Land Raider goes from 9 wounds down to 8 and is now in a damaged category. This squad of Tactical Marines is going to fire their bolt guns at the Poxwalker and the last cannon at the wounded Chaos Land Raider. None of the bolt guns are within rapid fire range of the Poxwalker. So 4 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 3, failing to wound. Now for the last cannon onto the Chaos Land Raider, hitting on a 3, and it hits, wounding on a 3, and it wounds. Land Raider has a 5-up armor, and it fails, and D6 damage, and it does 5 damage. So the Land Raider will drop from 8 wounds down to 3, and it is now very heavily damaged. This group of Tactical Marines is going to do the same thing, and I just realized that this squad had lost a guy last turn, so to make up for it, I will only fire 3 bolt guns from here. Not that any of them even did anything, but for fairness purposes, I will only have 3 of the bolt guns fire from this squad to make up for the fact that an extra bolt gun fired over here. 3 bolt guns, getting 2 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound, 6-up armor save, fails, and a 5-up disgustingly resilient. And the final Poxwalker goes down, so it all works out in the end. Finally, the last cannon hits on a 3. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on a 3. And it wounds. Land Raider will have a 5-up armor save, which it fails. Does D6 damage. 3+, and it's gone. And that's it. The Chaos Land Raider is removed. On a 6, it explodes. And it does not explode. Forgot to roll to see if the Night Titan would explode. That also wouldn't have exploded. Should have done that at the end of the fight phase last turn. So the only thing left that can shoot is the Primaris Lieutenant and the Repulsor. The Primaris Lieutenant is going to fire his bolt pistol into the Poxwalkers. Hitting on a 3, re-rolling thanks to the Chapter Master. And he hits, wounding on a 3. And it fails to wound, but he gets to re-roll once thanks to himself. And so it wounds. Poxwalkers are all in crater, so a 6-up armor. And they pass. So finally, the Repulsor is going to shoot everything it has into those Plague Marines. Starting with the Storm Bolters, because he's just within half range. So 12 shots from the Storm Bolters, hitting on 3s. Getting 10 hits. Wounding on 5s. Getting 1 wound. No AP, so a 3-up armor save. And it passes. Now for the Twin Heavy Bolter, 6 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits, wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. -1 AP, so a 4-up armor save, which he passes. Iron Hail Heavy Stubber, 3 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 5, fails to wound. 2 Crack Storm Grenade Launchers, hitting on 3s, both hit. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5, 3s to wound, getting no wounds. And finally, the last Talon, 2 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 9 versus Toughness 5 is a 3 to wound, and it fails to wound. Wow, the repulsor did nothing. Finally, going into the Ultramarines turn 2 assault phase, we have 2 charges to declare. These Terminators are going to declare a charge onto this squad of Poxwalkers, and the Primaris Lieutenant is going to declare a charge onto the Demon Prince. So starting with the charge range for the Lieutenant, no Overwatch, and he makes it in. Now for these Terminators, they are just under 7 inches away, which means normally they would need to roll a 6 or higher in order to make the charge and be within an inch. However, because they're in a crater, we have to subtract 2 from that roll, so they need a roll of an 8 or better to make the charge. And they do. So now that all of the charging units have made their charge moves, we will start with the Terminators onto the Poxwalkers. And we will start with the 3 attacks from the Terminator Sergeant. Hitting on 3s, all 3 hit, wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds, 1 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and 1 makes it. So one Poxwalker will go down. Then the 4 regular Terminators have 2 attacks apiece for 8 attacks total, hitting with their Power Fists, hitting on 4s because the Power Fists subtract 1 from the hit rolls. And that is terrible. 2 hits go through. Strength 8 versus Toughness 3 means 2s to wound, 2 wounds, and these are D3 damage apiece, so we will do them separately. First one will do 1 damage, so 1 disgustingly resilient roll, which he passes, and the second one will do 2 damage, 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls. Fails both, but because they both go on to the same person, only 1 more Poxwalker is removed. Now the Primaris Lieutenant will go, since he also charged. 4 attacks, hitting on 2s. Re-rolling thanks to the Chapter Master. Getting 4 hits. Strength 6 with the Burning Blade versus Toughness 6 means 4s to wound, re-rolling 1s. No wounds so far, but re-rolling the 1. And 1 wound goes through. -5 AP, so the Demon Prince will not be able to use its Suppurating Plate, which means it will have to take a 5-up invulnerable save, and this will not have a chance to reflect back onto the Lieutenant. And he fails to save. It is only 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which he also fails. However, one thing that I forgot at the beginning of the Ultramarines turn is that the Demon Prince's Warlord trait, Tainted Regeneration, allows him to regenerate a wound at the beginning of each player's turn. So technically, he should have gone back up to 7 at the beginning of the Ultramarines turn, so we will just leave him at 6. Because he would have gone back up to 7, and then this would have brought him back down to 6 wounds. So the Demon Prince still has 6 wounds left. Now that all the charging units have gone, now we will start going back and forth with the units that did not charge and are locked in combat. The Ultramarines only have 1 model that did not charge that is in combat, and so we will do the Chapter Master, and then we will do all of the Death Guard units. But the Chapter Master does go first, so if he kills the Demon Prince will not be able to attack back. So 5 attacks using the melee form of the Bolt Storm Gauntlet, hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s. Getting 5 hits, that's pretty good. Strength 8 versus Toughness 6 means 3s to wound, re-rolling 1s thanks to the Lieutenant. And there's a couple of 2s, so you're getting 3 wounds. These are -3 AP, so the Demon Prince will use his 5-up armor save from the Suppurating Plate in order to try to get some of the wounds to reflect back onto the Chapter Master. So 5 ups. And he makes 1. So first we will see on a 4+ if that wound reflects back to the Chapter Master. And it does not. The 2 wounds that went through are worth D3 damage apiece. So 2d3 damage, doing a total of 2 damage, 2 5-up disgustingly resilient saves, which he fails both, and so the Demon Prince will go from 6 wounds down to 4. But that is all the attacks from the Ultramarine side, so now the Death Guard will fight back, starting with the Demon Prince. He has 7 attacks, and he is going to put all 7 onto the Chapter Master. Hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, 6s generate more attacks. No 6s, but we do get to re-roll the 1, which is still a miss. So 6 hits out of 7 attacks. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 is 3s to wound. Getting 3 wounds, and the Chapter Master does not have a force field anymore, so it's either a 4-up armor save, thanks to the -2 AP, or a 4-up invulnerable save. So we'll take the 4-up invulnerable save from the Iron Halo this turn. Not that it matters where it's coming from, because it won't reflect damage back the way that the Demon Prince's Relic would. 3 4-up saves, and passes 2, and so 1 goes through, worth 2 damage, but of course Iron Resolve on the Chapter Master means rolls of 6s, he will ignore that damage. He does not ignore either of them, so he goes from 3 wounds down to 1. Finally, moving over to the Poxwalkers, they'll pile in a little bit, and there are 5 of them left, with 2 attacks apiece for 10 attacks total. Hitting on 5s, getting 3 hits, and wounding on 5s, getting 3 wounds, and the Terminators have 2-up armor saves, which they fail 1. So 1 Terminator will go from 2 wounds down to 1. Since that is the end of the Ultramarines assault phase, we will now move into the morale phase. The Poxwalkers do not take morale tests, but the Plague Marines could, and they lost 3 people this turn, and their sergeant was killed the last turn. So they only have a leadership of 7, and they lost 3 men. So on a roll of a 5 or a 6, more Plague Marines will go down. And 2 more Plague Marines go down. Wow. So that's an unfortunate turn of events for the Plague Marines. Their icon will go down, and 1 of the 2 plasma guns will go down. And that will officially be the end of Ultramarines turn 2. So now let's move in to Death Guard turn 3. Going into the movement phase of Death Guard turn 3, we'll start down in this corner, and we're going to start with the Demon Prince, who is going to fall back out of combat towards the Poxwalkers and away from the Ultramarines. He can move up to 12 inches, and he is also going to regain a wound since it is the beginning of a new player's turn, bringing him back up to 5 wounds. And so he will end his movement right about there. These Poxwalkers are going to move up the board 4 inches, so that then they are closer to the Ultramarines than the Demon Prince is, which means he therefore cannot be targeted, since he is a character and has less than 10 starting wounds. And also then the Poxwalkers can attempt to charge in and finish things off. And they will finish their movement here, and they will not advance so that they can then charge these models. Moving over to this side of the board, the Lord of Contagion, which is in the middle of the board, is going to move this way 4 inches in order to be closer to the Terminators. These Plague Marines and the Plague Surgeon are then going to move up the board towards those Tactical Marines in the building, and they will end their movement here. This Chaos Land Raider, which still has all of its wounds, is going to move 10 inches this direction in order to get a better shot onto the Ultramarine Repulsor. Like so. These Poxwalkers are going to fall back out of combat. This Plague Marine, the last one from this squad, is going to move 5 inches up the board towards these Ultramarines. This Lord of Contagion is going to move 4 inches up the board towards the Ultramarines. And this Plague Surgeon is going to move up the board 5 inches towards the Ultramarines. And that is the end of the Death Guard turn 3 movement phase. So now we will move into the Death Guard psychic phase. And the Demon Prince is going to cast Smite onto the Chapter Master, because he is the closest visible enemy unit. The Demon Prince needs a 5 to pass, and it does. So this will do D3 mortal wounds. And it will just do 1. The Chapter Master only has 1 wound left, But thanks to his Warlord trait, Iron Resolve, he gets to roll a dice, and on a 6, he will ignore the wound. So on a roll of a 6, he survives. Anything else, the Chapter Master is killed. And it survives. Wow! The Chapter Master survived. So that is it for the Death Guard Psychic phase. Moving along into the Death Guard Shooting phase. We'll start with this Land Raider, which is going to shoot both of its twin last cannons into the Ultramarine Repulsor, and it will shoot its twin Heavy Bolter into the Hellblasters. Starting with the twin Heavy Bolter into the Hellblasters, 6 shots hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds. It is -1 AP, so the Hellblasters have a 4-up armor save. And they make 2, so 1 Hellblaster will go down from 2 wounds to 1. Now for the 2 twin last cannons into the Repulsor. 4 shots hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits, wounding on 3s, getting no wounds. The Plague Marines will shoot next into that tactical squad. The 2 plasma guns, the one on the regular Plague Marine and the one on the Plague Champion, are both within 18-inch rapid fire range. However, the 4 bolt guns in the squad are not. So we will start with the 2 plasma guns, and they will be fired as supercharged shots. So we will have to do them separately, starting with the Plague Champion. 2 shots hitting on 3s. 1 hit, but he will go down. And then the regular Marine will get 2 hits. So 3 hits from the plasma guns. Strength 8, since they're supercharged against Toughness 4, means 2s to wound. And all 3 wound, -3 AP, but the Marines are in a ruin, so they will get 5-up armor saves. And they fail all 3. So all 3 regular Marines will go down. Next, the 4 bolt guns from the Plague Marines will fire at full range into the Ultramarines. 4 shots hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means 4s to wound, getting 2 wounds. No AP, so the Ultramarines will have 2-up armor saves. And they pass both. However, they will have to take a morale test at the end of this turn, since they lost 3 men. Moving over to this side, the Plague Surgeon is just within 12 inches of the Terminators, and so he will fire his bolt pistol in an attempt to take the last wound off of that Terminator, hitting on a 3, and he fails to hit. Lastly, for shooting, the final Plague Marine with the plasma gun is going to fire rapid fire into the Terminators with supercharged shots. 2 shots hitting on 3s, 1 hit, and he will not go down. Strength 8 versus Toughness 4 means a 2 to wound, and it wounds. -3 AP, so the Terminator will have either a 5-up armor or a 5-up invuln. So it's 5-up save, which it passes. And that is it for the Death Guard shooting phase. So we will move right along into the Death Guard assault phase. We have a couple of charges to declare. First will be a multi-charge from the Poxwalkers into both the Chapter Master and the Primaris Lieutenant. Next will be this Lord of Contagion is going to declare a charge into the Terminators. This Lord of Contagion will declare a charge into the Terminators, and that'll be it. So starting over here with the Poxwalkers, there is Overwatch from both the Lieutenant and the Chapter Master. Starting with the Lieutenant, a bolt pistol, hitting on a 6, re-rolling thanks to the Chapter Master, and he fails to hit. Then the Bolt Storm Gauntlet from the Chapter Master, all fail to hit, but gets to re-roll thanks to himself, and he gets 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 3 means a 3 to wound, and it fails to wound. Here's the charge distance, and the charge is failed. This Lord of Contagion will charge next into the Terminators. Only 3 of the Terminators, these 3, are actually able to see the Lord of Contagion in order to fire Overwatch. Still 12 shots, however, hitting on 6s, getting 3 hits, wounding on 5s, getting no wounds. The charge distance for the Lord of Contagion is 8 inches, which is more than enough, and he will end up here. Now this Lord of Contagion will charge, and they can no longer Overwatch. 4 inches is not enough. So moving into the only successful charge, the Lord of Contagion versus the Terminators. The Lord of Contagion has 4 attacks going onto the Terminators, hitting on 2s, with 6s generating extra attacks. No 6s, but all 4 hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means 3s to wound, 3 rolling 1s. 3 wounds go through. The Terminators have a 5-up save, and they pass 1, and these do D3 damage apiece. So we'll have to do them separately. The first one, however, doesn't matter what it would have rolled, because all it will do is take the final wound off of the 1 wounded Terminator, but the second one will matter. And it will do 2 wounds, which will remove a second Terminator. So now the Terminators will pile in and fight back, and we'll start with the Terminator Sergeant. 3 attacks, hitting on 3s. Getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 is 5s to wound, and he fails to wound. Then the 4 attacks from the 2 regular Terminators, hitting on 4s because of the Power Fists, getting 3 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 5 is 3s to wound, and that's 3 wounds. So the Lord of Contagion will take his 4-up Cataphractii Invulnerable save, and fails all 3, and these do D3 damage apiece, doing a total of 4 damage. So the Lord of Contagion will take his Disgustingly Resilient save, and will pass 2. So he will go from 6 wounds down to 4. And that will be the end of the Death Guard Assault phase. So now we will move into the Morale phase, and we will start this Plague Marine squad, which lost the champion, but the regular Plague Marines still have a leadership of 7, and therefore, since they only lost 1 guy, it would be impossible for them to fail this morale check. So they will not bother taking one. The Terminator Sergeant is leadership 9, and so since they only lost 2 guys, they do not need to take a morale test. However, these Tactical Marines, their Sergeant is only leadership 8, and they lost 3 guys. So if they roll a 6, they will lose 1 more soldier. And they do not. Going into Ultramarines turn 3, the first thing that needs to be done is the Demon Prince regenerates 1 wound, goes up to 6, thanks to his Warlord trait Tainted Regeneration, which happens at the beginning of each player turn. Going into the movement phase of Ultramarines turn 3, the Chapter Master is going to move up the board 5 inches towards the Demon Prince, and that's where he'll end up. The Primaris Librarian is going to move up the board 6 inches towards the Demon Prince. The Hellblasters, now that they're fully functional again, are going to move up towards the Poxwalkers 6 inches. And here's where the Hellblasters will end up. This Repulsor is going to move up the board 10 inches in order to get a better shot on the Plague Marines and the Land Raider, and to be closer to the Death Guard deployment zone. And he will finish his move right here. These 2 Tactical Marines are going to stay put right here. This Tactical Squad of 4 is going to stay put right here. The Terminators are going to stay locked in combat with the Lord of Contagion. And this Land Raider is going to move up 5 inches. Mainly so that Stormbolter is in rapid fire range of all of these models and the Poxwalkers. Even though the Lord of Contagion and the Plague Surgeon are not able to be targeted yet, because the Plague Marine is out front and the closest visible enemy model compared to them. Going into the shooting phase of Ultramarines turn 3, the 5 Hellblasters are going to fire rapid fire standard shots from the Plasma Incinerators into this group of 8 Poxwalkers. 10 shots from the Hellblasters into the Poxwalkers, hitting on 3s, re-rolling because the Chapter Master is still within 6 inches. And these are standard shots, not supercharged shots, so 1s will not remove models. Getting 6 hits to start, and the re-rolls. Ooh, none of the re-rolls going through. That would have been a lot of 1s. Wounding on 2s, thanks to Strength 7 versus Toughness 3. And all wound. Only 1 damage apiece, and no save of course, so the Poxwalkers will take 6 5-up Disgustingly Resilient saves, which they pass 3, bringing them down to 5 Poxwalkers left. Then the lieutenant will fire a bolt pistol into them, hitting on a 3, re-rolling thanks to the chapter master, getting a hit, wounding on a 3, re-rolling 1s, getting a wound, no save, so a 5-up disgustingly resilient, which he fails, and one more Poxwalker goes down. Then the chapter master will fire his bolt storm gauntlet into the Poxwalkers, 3 shots hitting on 2s, re-rolling thanks to himself, getting all hits, wounding on 3s, re-rolling 1s thanks to the lieutenant, getting no wounds. This 2-man tactical marine squad is going to have the sergeant fire his bolt gun at full range, 1 shot onto the plague marine, the final plague marine that's left, and the last cannon will shoot at the land raider. So first, the bolt gun onto the plague marine gets a hit, needs a 5 to wound, and does not wound. The last cannon hitting on a 3 gets a hit, wounding on a 3, and fails to wound. This squad of 4 tactical marines is going to fire 3 bolt guns full range into the plague marine, and the last cannon is also going to shoot that plague marine. I really want to make sure that that plague marine is dead, because that grants a kill point to the Ultramarines, and this last cannon cannot see that land raider at all. So as insurance, everything from this squad is going to fire at that last plague marine. Starting with 3 bolt guns, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits, wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds, 2 3-up armor saves, which passes both. Thank goodness for the insurance policy. Now the last cannon hits on with a 5, needing a 3, wounding on a 3, and it wounds, minus 3 AP, so the plague marine only has a 6-up armor save, and it fails. That was almost a pass, but now it will do D6 damage. It'll do 4 damage, so 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, but thanks to the plague surgeon being within 3 inches, he gets to re-roll 1s. So he passes 1, but definitely fails 3, and that plague marine is finally dead. These Terminators cannot shoot as they are locked in combat. This Land Raider is going to fire its Storm Bolter in rapid fire range and its Twin Heavy Bolter into this squad of 6 Poxwalkers. Both of the twin last cannons are going to shoot the Plague Surgeon, as he is closer to the Land Raider than the Lord of Contagion is, and so the Land Raider cannot target that Lord of Contagion. So we're going to start with the 2 twin last cannons onto the Plague Surgeon. 4 shots, hitting on 4s. Getting 3 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 5 means 3s to wound. And gets 3 wounds. The Plague Surgeon has a 3-up armor save, and the last cannons are minus 3 EP, so the Plague Surgeon will have to take 3 6-up armor saves. And passes 1. So these will do D6 damage apiece for the 2 that went through, doing a total of 5 wounds. But the Plague Surgeon has a 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, and he gets to re-roll 1s thanks to himself. And he passes 2, but fails 3, and so the Plague Surgeon will go from 4 wounds down to 1, and is still alive. Now for the Twin Heavy Bolter from the Land Raider onto the Poxwalkers. Hitting on 4s, only getting 1 hit, wounding on a 2, and it wounds. No save, so a single disgustingly resilient roll, and a Poxwalker goes down. From 5 down to 4. I think earlier I said that it had 6 people, it only had 5. I miscounted. This guy, with the way that his arms are shaped, looked like 2 people. And finally, the Storm Bolter in rapid fire range. 4 shots, hitting on 4s, getting 1 hit again, wounding on a 3, and it wounds, and 1 disgustingly resilient save, which he passes. Going over to the Death Guard side of the table, we finally have to do the Repulsor's shooting attacks, and he will fire his last Talon into the Land Raider, and everything else is going to shoot the Plague Marines. So we'll start with the last Talon. 2 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 is 3s to wound, getting 1 wound, minus 3 AP, so the Chaos Land Raider will have a 5-up armor save, which he fails, and it will do d6 damage, and it will do 5 damage. So this Chaos Land Raider will go from 16 wounds down to 11. I think that's exactly what happened to the other one earlier this game. So now all of the shots from the Repulsor into the Plague Marines. We'll start with the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber, 3 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 5, getting no wounds, 2 Crack Storm Grenade Launchers, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 3, failing to wound, 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits, wounding on 4s, healing to wound, and now 12 shots from the 3 Storm Bolters in rapid fire range into the Plague Marines, hitting on 3s, that's better, getting 10 hits, wounding on 5s, getting 5 wounds, no AP, so the Plague Marines will have 3-up armor saves, and they fail 2. 5-up Disgustingly Resilient, rerolling 1s. They pass both. I think the 5 wounds that the Repulsor did to this Land Raider is the only damage that thing has done this entire game, because it didn't do anything to the Demon Prince. I think it shot at these guys last turn as well, and it didn't do anything to them. This Repulsor is not worth the points. Other than that, it kept the Hellblasters safe during the first Death Guard turn. But seriously, how with that many shots has it not done anything to those Plague Marines after like 2 turns of shooting? How? Pro tip, take more Land Raiders. He'll do more for you. And that's it for the Ultramarine shooting phase. Moving into the Ultramarines assault phase, we have 3 charges to declare. The first is that the Hellblasters are going to declare a charge into the Poxwalkers. The second is that the Primaris Lieutenant is going to declare a charge into the Demon Prince of Nurgle. And the third is that the Chapter Master is going to declare a charge into the Demon Prince of Nurgle. We're going to start with the Chapter Master. There's no Overwatch from the Demon Prince, so here's his charge range. 8 inches, subtract 2 from being in the crater, but that is still more than enough to get him into combat. Now the Primaris Lieutenant will charge in, getting 6 inches, but after subtracting the 2 for being in cover, he is in the crater, he is still well within. Finally, the Hellblasters charging into the Poxwalkers. There's no Overwatch there either. And 2 inches will not be enough to make it in. So going into the Ultramarines fight phase in turn 3, we have these 2 charging units, and then these Terminators didn't charge, but they will be the next unit to go, and then the Death Guard units will be able to go. So we're going to start with the 4 attacks from the Primaris Lieutenant onto the Demon Prince. Hitting on 2s, re-rolling, thanks to the Chapter Master, and all 4 hit. Strength 6 because of the Burning Blade versus Toughness 6 from the Demon Prince means wounding on 4s, but re-rolling 1s thanks to himself. Re-rolling the 1. Getting 2 wounds to go through. It is minus 5 AP, so the Demon Prince will be forced to use his 5-up invulnerable save for being demonic, which he passes 1, and it's 1 damage, so a 5-up Disgustingly Resilient roll, which he also passes. Then the Captain with his 5 attacks. 2-up weapon skill, but because of the Bolt Storm Gauntlet in melee form, he will be hitting on 3s, only able to re-roll 1s. Luckily, he didn't roll any 2s, so re-rolling the 1s. Getting 4 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 6 means 3s to wound. Re-rolling 1s thanks to the Lieutenant. 2 1s. Getting 3 wounds, minus 3 AP, so the Demon Prince will be using a 5-up armor save in order to attempt to reflect wounds back onto the Chapter Master. And all go through, so no reflected wounds, and now potentially a lot of damage is going to come the Demon Prince's way, because they are D3 damage apiece. And that is 7 wounds. Obviously, the Demon Prince gets his 5-up Disgustingly Resilient roll, but if he fails 6 of these, or all 7, the Demon Prince will go down. and he fails 5. So the Demon Prince survives with 1 wound left. Of course he does. Of course the Demon Prince survives with 1 wound left, which means he's definitely going to be able to regenerate 1 wound at the beginning of Death Guard turn 4. This is not over yet. Now the Terminators, the Ultramarine Terminators, will attack the Lord of Contagion. 3 attacks from the Sergeant first with his Power Sword, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 5, getting a wound. 4-up Cataphractii Invulnerable save, which he passes. 4 attacks from the regular Terminators and their Power Fists, hitting on 4s, getting 3 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 5 means 3s to wound, getting 2 wounds. 2 4-up Cataphractii Invulnerable saves, passes 1. It will do D3 damage. It'll do 3 damage. 5-up Disgustingly Resilient. Fails all 3. So the Lord of Contagion will also go down to 1 wound and get to attack back. Of course. 4 attacks from the Lord of Contagion back onto the Terminators with his Man Reaper. Hitting on 2s. 6s cause additional attacks. Getting 2 additional attacks, of course, and 1 miss. So 2 more hits, getting a lovely total of 5 hits out of 4 attacks. Wounding on 3s, thanks to being Strength 7, versus their Toughness 4. Getting 4 wounds. The Terminators will take a 5-up save and fail all 4. And I had to go back to look at it, but they, on the rolls to wound, they did get a 1, and it is a plague weapon that the Lord of Contagion has, so he does get to re-roll the 1 to wound. So it does wound, he does a 5th wound, and then the invulnerable save, but that one passes. So 4 wounds go through, and we have to do these one at a time because they're D3 damage, and the Terminators have 2 wounds apiece. So the first one will remove a Terminator. The second one will remove a Terminator. And so now, actually, there's 2 wounds, 2 rolls left at D3 damage, and so the last 2 wounds from the Sergeant, the Terminator Sergeant, will definitely be removed, but let's see what that would have done. Oh yeah, 3 damage onto the final 2 wounded Terminator, and all 3 Terminators are killed off. So, of course, the Terminators failed to finish off the Lord of Contagion, and he turns around and reaps them all. He will then consolidate a little bit towards the Ultramarines. So now the Demon Prince gets to attack back, and he has 7 attacks base with his 2 Malefic Talons. He will put 2 attacks onto the Chapter Master and 5 attacks onto the Lieutenant. So starting with the 2 attacks on the Chapter Master, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, and 6s generate additional attacks. So re-rolling the 1, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means 3s to wound, and gets 1 wound, minus 2 AP, so the Chapter Master will have a 4-up save from either his armor or his Iron Halo, and it fails, so it goes through, and it will do 2 damage, so 2 6-up saves. If he fails one or both of them, the Chapter Master is removed as a casualty. And the Chapter Master goes down for a Warlord kill. And finally, the 5 attacks onto the Lieutenant. Getting 5 hits plus an extra attack, which also hits. So 6 hits out of 5 attacks. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means 3s to wound. Getting 4 wounds. The Lieutenant, unfortunately, only has a 3-up armor save, so the minus 2 AP makes it a 5-up armor save, which he fails all of, and the Demon Prince's attacks are 2 damage apiece, and he only has 5 wounds, so he is more than overkilled, and the Lieutenant is killed off as well. And the Demon Prince will not consolidate because he doesn't want to be any closer to those Hellblasters than he absolutely needs to be right now. There are no morale tests this turn, so that is it for Ultramarines turn 3. Going into Death Guard turn 4, first thing that needs to be done is the Demon Prince will regenerate 1 wound, going back up to 2 wounds total. Going into the Death Guard movement phase for turn 4, the Demon Prince is going to move over in this direction 12 inches. He will end up right here, just over an inch away from these Hellblasters. These Poxwalkers are also going to move up the board 4 inches towards these Hellblasters, finishing their movement right there. This Chaos Land Raider is going to move back this way about 6 inches. This leaves the Land Raider's Twin Heavy Bolter still within 36 inches of those Hellblasters if the Land Raider chooses to fire at them. It also opens up more shots and lines of fire this direction towards those Tactical Marines and the Ultramarines Land Raider. These Plague Marines and the Plague Surgeon are going to move up the board 5 inches each towards the Ultramarines deployment zone. And here's where they will finish their movement. These Poxwalkers are now going to move up the board 4 inches towards that Land Raider. This Lord of Contagion is going to move towards the Land Raider 4 inches. This Lord of Contagion is going to move towards the Land Raider 4 inches. This Plague Surgeon is going to move up the board towards the Land Raider 5 inches. And that is all of the Death Guard moving. Going into the Death Guard Psychic phase for turn 4, the Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to cast Curse of the Leper onto the Hellblasters. He needs a 7 to succeed, which he fails to get. Moving into the Death Guard shooting phase of turn 4, we will start with the Plague Surgeon. He will shoot a bolt pistol into the Land Raider, hitting on a 3, and it hits, wounding on a 6, and it fails to wound. The Chaos Land Raider is going to shoot both of its twin last cannons into the repulsor, and it will shoot its twin heavy bolter into the Hellblasters. Starting with the twin heavy bolter into the Hellblasters, 6 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits. Strength 5 versus toughness 4 means 3s to wound. All 5 wound. Minus 1 AP, so the Hellblasters go to a 4-up armor save, and they fail 3. So the 1 wounded Hellblaster is downed, and 1 full Hellblaster is downed. Now from the 4 shots, from the 2 twin last cannons into the repulsor, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 9 versus toughness 8 means 3s to wound, and it fails to wound. The Plague Surgeon is just within 12 of the repulsor, so he will shoot a bolt pistol at the repulsor. And it hits, needing a 6 to wound, and it fails to wound. The Plague Marines are fully in rapid fire range of both these Tactical Marines and the repulsor, so the 4 bolt guns in the squad are going to shoot rapid fire into the Tactical Marines, whereas the 1 plasma gun left is going to shoot rapid fire into the repulsor using supercharged shots. So starting with the 8 bolt guns from the Plague Marines into the Tactical Marines, hitting on 3s, getting 6 hits, wounding on 4s, getting 3 wounds. And the Tactical Marines will have a 2-up armor save, and they make all of them. Now the 2 shots from the plasma gun into the repulsor, 1 hit, but he will go down. Strength 8 versus toughness 8 is a 4 to wound, and it wounds. Minus 3 AP, so the repulsor will have a 6-up armor save, which it fails, and because it's supercharged, it will do 2 damage. So the repulsor will go from 16 wounds down to 14. And that is it for the Death Guard shooting phase. So now we will move into the Death Guard assault phase, and there are a lot of charges to declare. Plague Surgeon declares charge into the Land Raider. Lord of Contagion declares charge into the Land Raider. Poxwalkers declare a charge into the Land Raider. Lord of Contagion declares a charge into the Land Raider. Demon Prince declares a charge into the Hellblasters, and the Poxwalkers declare a charge into the Hellblasters. We will start over on this side, and the Poxwalkers will charge first in order to attempt to soak up the Overwatch. So 6 plasma incinerator shots from the Hellblasters using standard shots, hitting on 6s, getting no hits. Charge distance for the Poxwalkers, they're more than in. And this is where the Poxwalkers ended up. Now that the Hellblasters can't Overwatch, the Demon Prince will charge in, and he definitely makes it in. Moving over to here, the Poxwalkers will charge first in an attempt to soak up the Overwatch, because if they make it in, then it will provide safe passage for the Lords of Contagion and the Plague Surgeon. Stormbolters first. 4 shots, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Twin Heavy Bolter next, 6 shots, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. 4 shots from the 2 Twin Last Cannons, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 2, and it wounds. No save, so D6 damage. Only doing 2 damage. 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls. And a Poxwalker saves 1, but fails the other, and so 1 Poxwalker goes down. Next will be their charge range. Getting 6 inches, but because they're charging through the cover, they would need a 5 in order to be within an inch. They would need 5 inches, which means they would need to roll a 7 or higher, so they fail the charge. So the fully healthy Lord of Contagion will declare charge next, but the Land Raider will get to Overwatch in full again, starting with the Stormbolters. Getting 1 hit, wounding on a 5, and it wounds. 2-up armor save, which he passes. Twin Heavy Bolter gets 1 hit, wounding on a 4, fails to wound. 2 Twin Last Cannons fail to hit. Lord of Contagion's charge distance is 6 inches, which is more than enough even going through the crater. So now that he is in, Overwatch will not happen anymore for the Land Raider, so this Lord of Contagion will declare charge next. Anything other than double 1s will put him in because of the crater, and this Plague Surgeon will charge in. And he is also in. So starting in the Death Guard fight phase, we're gonna begin with the Demon Prince and the Poxwalkers over here. The Demon Prince will attack first. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, 6s generate more attacks. No 6s, but there is a 1 to re-roll. This could potentially result in a 6 generating a further attack, and it does not. So 7 hits out of 7 attacks. Strength 7 against Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s. Getting 5 wounds, minus 2 AP, so the Hellblasters will have a 5-up armor save. And they fail 3, and they are 2 damage apiece, so the final 3 Hellblasters are removed. And the Demon Prince will consolidate 3 inches. The Poxwalkers will not, because they would have to move towards the repulsor, and they want to move this way towards into the enemy deployment zone in order to secure Linebreaker. Moving over to this combat, we are going to start with the Lord of Contagion, the Wounded One. 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, 6s generate additional attacks. All 4 hit, and we do get an additional attack out of it, which also hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 8 on the Land Raider, so 5s to wound, re-rolling 1s thanks to the Man Reaper being a plague weapon. Getting 1 wound. Minus 3 AP, so the Land Raider will have a 6-up armor save, which it fails, and this will do D3 damage, and it will do 2, dropping the Land Raider from 6 wounds down to 4. Now the fully healthy Lord of Contagion will strike against the Land Raider. 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, no additional attacks, wounding on 5s, re-rolling 1s, getting 2 wounds so far, re-rolling the 1, getting 2 wounds total. 2 6-up armor saves, passes 1, but the other one goes through and will do D3 damage. And it'll do 2 damage as well, dropping the Land Raider from 4 wounds down to 2. Finally, the Plague Surgeon will strike against the Land Raider. 3 attacks with his Bale Sword, hitting on 3s. Getting 2 hits, wounding on 6s, re-rolling 1s thanks to being a plague weapon. Getting a 1, and it ends up being a 6. So 1 wound, minus 3 AP, so the Land Raider will have a 6-up armor save, which it fails. So the Land Raider goes from 2 wounds down to 1. But that is all that this group of units can dish out against it, so the Land Raider will survive with 1 wound left, which also means it gets to strike back. However, it is so damaged that it only has 1 attack, hitting on a 6, and it fails to hit. And I did not declare but it would be attacking the Plague Surgeon because that would be the easiest to potentially kill off, since he only has a 3-up armor and no invuln, whereas the Lord of Contagion has a 2-up armor. But not that it matters because it missed anyways. So that is the end of the Death Guard assault phase. Moving into the morale phase, the Poxwalkers do not have to take morale tests because they are mindless, and the Plague Marines only lost 1 soldier, and so their leadership of 7 would still keep them. They would automatically pass any morale tests since they only lost 1 guy. So had those Poxwalkers made the charge, they potentially could have taken the last wound off of the Land Raider, and instead it survives, at least for 1 more turn. Going into Ultramarines turn 4, the Ultramarines are in a little bit of a pickle. They only have the 4 units left: the Repulsor, the practically dead Land Raider, a squad of 4 Tactical Marines, and a squad of 2 Tactical Marines. So the Ultramarines are going to have to be a little bit strategic in what they do. First and foremost will be that this Land Raider needs to fall back 3 inches, because that's all that it can move now, away from these models so that they can be shot this turn. So here's where the Land Raider is, more than an inch away from all of those units. Tactical Marines will sit still. Tactical Marines will sit still. The Repulsor, which is still at almost full wounds, is going to move 10 inches over this way in order to do 2 things. 1, to try to get away from that Land Raider, but 2, to get better firing arcs on both the Demon Prince and the Poxwalkers in order to try to complete these kill points. And he will move to there. So going into the Ultramarine shooting phase, the Land Raider, because it fell back, cannot shoot this turn. So we will have this squad of 2 Tactical Marines, the Bolt Gun, which is not in rapid fire range, and the Last Cannon shoot the wounded Lord of Contagion. So the Bolt Gun first. Let's see if a Bolt Gun finishes off a Chaos Lord in Terminator armor. And it fails to hit. Now the Last Cannon. It hits, wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Oh no. The squad of 4 is going to fire everything it has into the wounded Lord of Contagion because he is closer than the Plague Surgeon, and therefore they cannot target the Plague Surgeon. So we'll start with the 3 bolt guns, 2 of which are in rapid fire range for 5 shots total, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits, wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound, and a 2-up armor save on the Lord of Contagion, which he passes. The Last Cannon will fire next, getting a hit, wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Why did both Last Cannons fail to wound on 3s? Like, really? Finally, before I forget, since it is now a new player turn, the Demon Prince does go up a wound from 2 to 3. It's just going to keep regenerating there, thanks to its Warlord trait. I forgot to do it at the very beginning of the turn, but that's okay. The Repulsor is going to fire its last Talon and its 2 Crackstorm grenade launchers into the Demon Prince, and it will fire everything else into the Poxwalkers. So starting with the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber into the Poxwalkers. 3 shots. Hitting on 3s. All 3 hit. Wounding on 3s. Getting 3 wounds. These are 1 damage apiece, so we can do them all at the same time. 3 5-up Disgustingly Resilient rolls. Failing 1. Now for the 3 Stormbolters in rapid fire range into the Poxwalkers. 12 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 7 hits, wounding on 3s. Getting 6 wounds, 6 5-up Disgustingly Resilient rolls. And they only pass 1, so the Poxwalkers are removed. Now this does mean that the twin heavy bolter on the Repulsor goes to waste because I did declare that that would be firing on the Poxwalkers. So just the last Talon and the 2 Crackstorm grenade launchers left. We'll start with the 2 Crackstorm grenade launchers, hitting on 3s, misses both, of course. And now the last Talon, 2 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s. 1 wound. Either way, it's a 5-up save and it won't reflect damage back onto the Repulsor since it's not the fight phase. So 5-up save from the Demon Prince, which he passes. Oh, this Demon Prince just will not die. This Demon Prince is disgustingly resilient. Except he didn't even have to take a disgustingly resilient roll there. That's terrible. Oh my goodness. That is terrible for the Ultramarines. And that's the end of Ultramarines turn 4, unfortunately. Moving into Death Guard turn 5, first thing that needs to happen is the Demon Prince regenerates another wound. So now he's back up to 4. Isn't that fantastic? First things first, in the movement phase, this Land Raider is going to move this way a little bit so that he has better shots on those Tactical Marines, and he already can see that repulsor because it's not very well hidden behind that wall. So just like that. Lord of Contagion is going to move up 4 inches. Lord of Contagion is going to move up... actually, no. Plague Surgeon is first going to move over 5 inches. Then the Lord of Contagion will move up 4. The reason for this is this way, both Lords of Contagion are within 3 inches of the Plague Surgeon, giving them better Disgustingly Resilient. The Poxwalkers are then going to move up the board 4 inches, and they will also declare an advance, which nets them an additional 6 inches for 10 inches of movement total. And that's where the Poxwalkers will end up. They will not be able to charge since they advanced this turn. These Plague Marines are going to move up the board 5 inches, and the Plague Surgeon will move up behind them 5 inches. Right to there. Finally, this Demon Prince, because he doesn't want to be killed off in Overwatch, although now that he's got 4 wounds back, it's not likely to happen, but because this is turn 5 and potentially the last turn of the game, victory points do matter, and so he's going to move 12 inches down the board into the Ultramarines deployment zone. Here is where he ended up, down in this corner. He is now fully within the Ultramarines deployment zone, and he is still within 18 inches of the repulsor in order to cast Smite in the Psychic phase, if he chooses. So that is the end of the Death Guard turn 5 movement phase. And going into the Psychic phase, we're going to cast Smite from the Demon Prince into the repulsor. Needing a 5, and gets it. D3 mortal wounds, and causes 1, dropping the repulsor from 14 wounds down to 13. Going into the Death Guard shooting phase, we're going to start by having a little bit of fun. The Plague Surgeon is going to fire a bolt pistol into the Land Raider again. He's going to try to take the last wound off that Land Raider with his dinky bolt pistol, hitting on a 3. And it fails to hit, so never mind. These 4 Plague Marines all have bolt guns, and they're going to shoot rapid fire into the squad of 2 Tactical Marines, hitting on 3s, getting 6 hits, wounding on 4s. Wow, getting 5 wounds. And the Marines will have a 2-up armor save since they are standing in the ruins. And they fail 1, so the Sergeant will go down. Finally, the last thing that needs to shoot is that Land Raider, and he's going to fire both of his twin last cannons into the repulsor, and he will fire his twin heavy bolter into the squad of 4 Tactical Marines, mainly because he cannot see this last Marine here. Otherwise, he would try to finish off that squad. So the twin heavy bolter first from the Land Raider into these Tactical Marines. Hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits, wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound, minus 1 AP, but they are standing in a ruin, so they will have a 3-up armor save. And they pass. Finally, for the twin last cannons from the Chaos Land Raider into the Ultramarine repulsor, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 means 3s to wound. Hitting 1 wound, and the repulsor will have a 5-up armor save, which he passes. So now, moving into the Death Guard assault phase. The Death Guard will declare charge with these 3 units onto the Land Raider. So the Lord of Contagion, Plague Surgeon, and the Wounded Lord of Contagion. The fully healthy Lord of Contagion will charge first in order to soak up the Overwatch. Starting with the Storm Bolter in rapid fire range, 4 shots, hitting on 6s, getting no hits. Twin Heavy Bolter, 6 shots, hitting on 6s, no hits. 2 twin last cannons, 4 shots, hitting on 6s, getting no hits. That is 14 dice we just rolled, and there were 0 6s in there. Glad to know statistics are working in this game. So they are all just over an inch away. However, because they are standing in craters, if they roll double 1s, they will fail their charge. So, fully healthy Lord of Contagion, the one who just took the Overwatch, he is in. The Plague Surgeon is also in. And the Wounded Lord of Contagion is also in barely. So the Plague Surgeon wants to steal the glory and kill off the Land Raider with his Bale Sword. So 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits, wounding on 6s, re-rolling 1s, getting 1 hit, or 1 wound, minus 3 AP, so the Land Raider has a 6-up armor save. And if he fails this, the Bale Sword from the Plague Surgeon will kill it. And it passes, of course it does. Still alive. Now the Wounded Lord of Contagion, who finished off the Knight Errant, is going to try to finish off the Land Raider. 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, with 6s generating an additional attack, getting an extra attack. So 5 hits out of 4 attacks, wounding on 5s, re-rolling 1s. 1 wound so far with 2 re-rolls. Okay, 1 wound, minus 3 AP. So 6-up save or the Land Raider is dead. And it is taken out. Does it explode? Yes, it does. And because it explodes, each unit within 6 inches suffers D6 mortal wounds. And so that's all of these guys. So let's start with the Tactical Marines. Will the Land Raider kill off its own tactical squad? D6 mortal wounds. 4 or higher and that squad is wiped out. And they're gone. And the explosion from the Land Raider kills off its own tactical squad. Oh my goodness. That squad had only lost 1 guy the entire game and then gets wiped out from its own Land Raider exploding. That is amazing. Wow. Now the Poxwalkers. D6 mortal wounds. 1 mortal wound, of course. But they get a disgustingly resilient roll. And they failed. So one Poxwalker goes down. Now the Wounded Lord of Contagion. D6 mortal wounds. And it'll do 4 mortal wounds. So 4 disgustingly resilient saves. 5 up. Re-rolling 1s thanks to the Plague Surgeon being nearby. And he passed 2 and gets to re-roll the other 2. Oh, and that Lord of Contagion is removed. The fully healthy Lord of Contagion. 1 mortal wound, disgustingly resilient, and he fails, and so he takes a mortal wound, going from 6 wounds down to 5. And finally, the Plague Surgeon. 3 mortal wounds, 5 up disgustingly resilient, and he passes 2. But of course, that means he is removed as well. And now that the explosions are all resolved, the Land Raider is also removed. And so now the last Lord of Contagion will consolidate 3 inches towards this Tactical Marine. And that is it for the Death Guard Assault phase. So going into the Morale phase, the Poxwalkers are mindless. And the final Tactical Marine has a leadership of 7. So since only 1 guy was removed this turn, they cannot fail a morale check. And so that is the end of Death Guard turn 5. Going into Ultramarines turn 5, potentially the last turn of the game, the Ultramarines have 2 models left on the table. A Tactical Marine with a Last Cannon, and a Repulsor with 13 out of its starting 16 wounds. Going into the Ultramarines movement phase, the Repulsor is going to move 10 inches down this direction. This Tactical Marine will stand still, which means we will move right into the shooting phase. The Repulsor is going to fire everything it has into the Demon Prince, who, by the way, regenerates 1 wound, back up to 5. And we're going to start with the last Talon, and just try to end it right away. 2 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 2 hits. That's a good start. Wounding on 3s. Getting 1 wound. That's alright. Minus 3 AP, so the Demon Prince will take his 5 up and vulnerable save. And fails, it will do D6 damage. And will do 5 damage. Demon Prince has a 5 up disgustingly resilient roll. And he fails 3, going from 5 wounds down to 2. Next will be the 2 crack grenade launchers. Hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6, wounding on a 4. And it wounds. Minus 1 AP, so the Demon Prince will have a 3-up armor save, which he passes. Twin Heavy Bolter, 6 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 4 hits. wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound, -1 AP, so a 3-up armor, which he passes. Iron Hail Heavy Stubber, 3 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits, wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds, 2 3-up armor saves, fails 1, and it does 1 damage, so 1 disgustingly resilient roll. And it fails. He goes down to 1 wound. This is now the second time that this Demon Prince has been down to 1 wound, by the way. Finally, 3 Storm Bolters in rapid fire range into the Demon Prince. 12 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 6 hits. Wounding on 5s. Getting 1 wound. No AP, so a 2-up armor save. And he passes. So the Demon Prince is still alive with 1 wound left. But we have a trump card. The last cannon from the Tactical Marine, which was probably going to shoot a Plague Marine or a Poxwalker because he can't see the Land Raider over there, is now going to direct his fire onto the Demon Prince. So, in epic fashion, a final last cannon shot onto the Demon Prince, hitting on a 3. And it hits, wounding on a 3. And it wounds, -3 AP, so a 5-up save from the Demon Prince. And he fails. I saw that 6 for a second. It does D6 damage. And it does 3 damage. 3 5-up disgustingly resilient saves. If a single one of these has failed, the Demon Prince is gone. And the crowd goes wild. And the Demon Prince is removed. That's crazy how much firepower it took to bring that Demon Prince down. I am very disappointed in you, Mr. Repulsor. You should have killed it on your own. So, there are no charges, obviously. There are no morale tests. So that is the end of Ultramarines turn 5. So now, we will roll a dice, and on a 3+, the game will continue into turn 6. On a 1 or a 2, the game is over, and we will tally up the victory points. And the game is over. So at the end of the game, now that it's all over, after the end of turn 5, the final victory point count is 10 victory points for the Death Guard and 9 victory points for the Ultramarines. Each side fully killed off 8 enemy units, and each side also obtained Slay the Warlord. Neither side obtained Linebreaker, thanks to the Demon Prince going down at the end. But the Death Guard did obtain First Blood from killing that 1 tactical squad. And so because of that, the Death Guard have 1 more victory point, and therefore the Death Guard win the game.